Beautiful. Thank you. Hello, hello, and welcome to another beautiful Friday afternoon here in California or wherever you are. I hope you're joining us from warm and beautiful weather this beautiful summer. Thank you so much for joining us for this afternoon cafe chat. I'll be doing as our normal cafe chat process. I will be introducing a quick video recording, and then we'll be turning this off and having our open dialogue and conversation. So hello, everyone. If you don't know me already, I'm Emily Taylor. I'm the Vice President of Advocacy and Engagement here at SolveME. And this is the week. Today is July 29th, 2022. And we had some really interesting and exciting items that happened this week, which I specifically in the Senate appropriations world. So that's where I will be talking today. Thank you so much. So as folks who have attended previous Advocacy Cafe chats may be familiar with, we did have in our appropriations work this year some really exciting efforts that we have already shared, specifically about the House Committee report language on defense, where we were successful in convincing the members that that make these decisions to set aside portion of resources for set aside language specifically for long COVID and MECFS. As you can see, we typically are in a compilation program, which is the CDMRP, or the Congressionally Directed Medical Research Program. We have actually received a call out in the defense language this year, as you can see on your screen, for long COVID and myalgic encephalomyelitis, chronic fatigue syndrome, specifically looking at a focus on issues related to military population related to diagnostic testing, cures, and treatment for post-viral illness, specifically long COVID and MECFS. That language was released a few weeks back. So this is old news from the committee on the House side. And then we also had, this is old news, committee, but then we had the Senate side. So this is new news. This week, just this week, we had the Senate Democrat-only committee report language on defense that was shared just yesterday, I believe, regarding the appropriations language from an explanatory statement that the Democrats have shared. Now, keep in mind, this doesn't carry the same weight or teeth as our House language, because the House language was marked up by both parties. So this is a non-marked up explanatory statement from the Democrats only, but a really great way to take the temperature of what the committee's up to and understand a little bit more about where we are in the process. So as you can see in the Senate Democrat committee report language and explanatory statement, we were once again, being myalgic encephalomyelitis, chronic fatigue syndrome, was once again added into the peer-reviewed medical research program. This is where we've been for a couple of years now, and we've been very successful here. In fact, just this year, the Open Medicine Foundation and Dr. Davis's team received $1.6 million from this program. So we're being very successful here, but we still are trying to pull ourselves out of this common program. As you can see, there's a list of a lot of different illnesses in that program and trying to get our own set-aside resources. So that was just announced this week. Again, not saying that we're a definite no for that option, but we will be watching very closely as we go to conference to see if the Senate or the House language wins out here. Next slide, please. So moving on from defense into Labor-HHS, which is Labor, Health, and Human Services, which also includes education and other related agencies. This is our House Committee report language. So this, again, you've probably seen before, but this is our language that was released a few weeks back from the House side. Again, this is marked up by both parties, and we were really excited to see quite a few pullouts for MECFS and long COVID. Specifically, what we were really excited about was the Infection-Associated Chronic Illnesses Advisory Committee, a federal advisory committee to replace what was previously the Chronic Fatigue Syndrome Advisory Committee that had been sunsetted under the Trump administration a few years ago. So that brings that committee back to life, a new broader committee with a different scope, and we're really excited to see that come over the finish line, hopefully, fingers crossed, before the end of the year. The other thing I'd like to highlight in this language is specifically the long COVID section on the right-hand side of your screen regarding clinical trials. That is very exciting language. We worked really hard to get that considered and to convince the folks on the House side that that was the way to go. And we're really excited to see that in the House side. Again, that includes $5.4 million in funding for the CDC's chronic fatigue syndrome program, even though we did request a $10 million increase to that program. So we haven't seen that $10 million increase reflected in this language yet, but that's a good segue into the Senate funding. If we can go one more slide in. Oh, sorry, thank you. We'll go back to that in a minute. Thank you, Jesse. Sorry, I need to remember the order of my slides. In the the Senate version that came out just this week, we saw once again that 5.4 million was reflected. So we do know for sure, and perfect, thank you for showing that there, Jesse, that we are seeing that 5.4 million in both the House and the Senate. So we're really sure that's there. We'll still keep pushing for that increase, but so far from the Senate sneak peek we've gotten from the Democrats only in this committee report language, it looks like we're in once again at flat funding for that program. If you could go back to the other slides we skipped through, Jesse. Sorry about that. Beautiful, thank you. So once again, looking at the language we received in the House version of the bill, of the committee report language, you can see that there are these other really interesting mentions of long COVID that we were really excited to see. These are new mentions that we haven't had in past committee reports. Specifically, I wanted to call the attention to the one on the lower left-hand side of your screen, the National COVID Cohort Collaborative, which is the N3C. This is an open science platform to accelerate biomedical research and discovery. It is currently the largest clinical repository of COVID-19 data, which is obviously a gold mine of potential resources and data for long COVID and the potential impact for ME and post-COVID cases. So that language, we're very interested in following that closely, specifically to open up that N3C collaborative to more understanding of ME/CFS and to see how long COVID interacts and what that data can tell us about post-viral chronic illness. Next slide, please. So as you can see, this is slide 3 of 3. We had a lot of mentions in the House committee report language, which is showing how seriously and completely the committee is really taking this issue. But I did want to highlight the specific long COVID that was just about long COVID on the left-hand side of your screen, specifically noting how we needed to deliver patient-centered care for people living with long COVID, including the use of digital and telehealth services. This is a bit of language that's a bit broad, but we're really hoping that we can use that language as a lever to put more pressure on the agencies when it comes to long COVID and post-viral illnesses, especially, once again, establishing multidisciplinary clinics to care for people with complex cases. And we're hoping to really, it's part of our long-term strategy to establish these clinics for long COVID and then build them into a backbone or a clinical care network that can really address all post-viral chronic illnesses like ME/CFS, and in the long term, because we know Epstein-Barr virus, despite COVID, has still not gone away. Q river fever and a lot of the other viruses that have previously caused ME/CFS before COVID have not gone away. COVID obviously has not gone away. So we are expecting more people getting sick from these kind of chronic post-acute infection illnesses in the future. So that's why this backbone of care, these multidisciplinary clinics, is such a high priority for our team. Okay, now moving on to the slides. Thank you for your patience. Looking at the committee report language from this sneak peek that we got this week from the Democrats in the Senate. Once again, noting that we are at 5.4 million, that the 10 million we requested is not reflected in this language, but we did see great language about ME/CFS in general, specifically about at the CDC. Looking at our interagency partners, our disease experts and stakeholders, and of course, collaborating with the NIH's collaborative research centers. So that language we're really feeling is going to help give the CDC the direction and the guidance from Congress into really developing these areas of programming more completely. Next slide, please. Now, just like our House language, we had a lot of language in the Senate Labor-HHS, which again is a really positive indication of how seriously the committee is taking these illnesses. Again, this is not a reflection of the whole committee because the Republicans were not involved in the creation of these specific committee reports and explanatory statements, but it's a really great way to kind of take the temperature of what's going on within the committee conversations. The really key elements I wanted to highlight is exactly what's in the text box there, that about $74 million has been recommended for programming support at AHRQ, which includes, as you can see in the language there, staffing necessary for the long COVID program, which is the longitudinal research program, as you can see on the right-hand side of your screen, which is at NIH. So there's funding going out to these key agencies for these really important initiatives. This includes Recover and also the AHRQ efforts. And most importantly, there's another $15 million that the committee adds for long COVID in the recommendations for funding, which is pretty critical. Last but not least, this long COVID research passage, which I am very pleased about, because it's such an important, this is the area that it specifies the 15 million where it should go. And specifically, again, once again, using that language about patient-centered coordinated care. And we had used the language multidisciplinary centers earlier. So really excited to see how this language is pushing our key priorities forward from Congress to the agencies, and highlighting exactly why the needs are so great in the clinical care and treatment areas. So with that, I'll wrap up quickly by just adding that this is not a complete package yet. We still have a long way to go until we have a full reconciliation between the House and the Senate versions. But this Senate sneak peek that we got this week is really encouraging, and we'll keep up our hard work and to make sure that the final budget reflects all of these changes, and most importantly, the funding levels that we really want to see. So with that, thank you all so much for joining me on a Friday. I hope you have a wonderful summer and it's continuing to be great weather for you. And we'll see you next month at our Advocacy Cafe chat with another update on our great work. Thank you so much.